Hey guys, I'm very excited for this episode. You're going to meet Dr. Ava, a special guest who came to the dollhouse on a Sunday afternoon a couple weeks ago. And she met Finley, who's snoring behind me right now. He was a little annoying in this episode at the very beginning. He was like scratching, really trying to get her to play with him. To be fair, I suggested that we put Finley away, but she's so sweet and loves animals that she was like, no, keep him out. So, apologizing for anyone who was watching this episode on YouTube or can hear Finley clawing in the background. But to get into it, this is such a great episode. Ever since she left my house, I've been thinking and processing about things she said on this show. So, I'm excited for her words to resonate and help you guys as well. Dr. Ava is a resilience expert, a keynote speaker. She's an author. She was even on Dr. Oz a couple times. She's going to tell us about all the things. I really enjoyed the inspiration she gave me to get back into writing myself. She really kind of just said it very simply, like, just do it. Do the things that bring you joy and bring you happiness. She talks about resilience, which is a word that's showing up a lot for me. So I'm happy to have her wisdom on the show and teach resilience to you all. And one thing that was sort of full circle for me is I had my Reiki healer, Ginny, tell me just last week to loosen the grip. I was telling her about a certain situation I was in, and she's like, something's telling me to tell you to loosen the grip. Well, in this episode, I had this aha moment and noticed it when I was editing this episode. She gave me the same advice on this show. She's so sweet, so full of love, so full of wisdom. Without further ado, I introduce you to the Resilience Coach. Dr. Ava is a keynote speaker, and she was even a guest on Dr. Oz. I mean, people in LA love that fact. How was that? How long ago was that?
Oh, that was a long time ago.
What did you guys talk about?
Well, I was on 3 different times.
Oh my gosh.
And he called me the medical sleuth. So he would have me on for like these sort of complicated things. But we talked about, I think we talked about stress busters on one of them, because that was my field of expertise, especially at the time. Fat busters.
Okay.
And
there's been a lot of conversation on my podcast that I listen to about fat right now.
Well, yeah, it's sort of a it's a big
It's
topic.
an epidemic.
An epidemic, right? And antioxidants was the other one.
Okay.
So
great.
the sort of which is the other epidemic is inflammation. So.
Okay.
But it was a long time ago. It was fun. He was super intense and talked really fast. So I was like,
okay, slow down.
It was really fun. It was fun.
That's a good reminder that you just gave me. We teach yoga on this podcast.
Yeah.
I thought of coffee and crystals at the end of a practice at yoga school at one of my 100 hours. And I was like, that's how I'm going to teach yoga. Because I was traveling a lot and I didn't see myself like picking a studio and showing up at a studio every day. And I was like, coffee and crystals is going to be a way that we do yoga. So you gave us the first lesson. Everyone, speak your truth, but speak it slow.
Ground it.
So there's a lot of topics that I want to go over with you today, but all those things that I just listed out, did you see any of this for yourself before it all came to fruition?
No, but a psychic did.
Oh, tell me about that.
I was 24. I was in, gosh, was it medical school still? Or maybe residency, I can't remember. No, medical school. It was medical school, and I was in Israel. Never been to a psychic in my life. My friends took me, and this woman barely speaks English. And she's telling me, she said, I see that whatever you're doing now, she didn't know what I did, knew nothing about me. She said, whatever you're doing now, in 5 years that will change. And you'll leave it, and you'll do something else. And it has, she said it will be something kind of psychological. And I said, what? I thought, psychology. I'm a medical doctor. Ooh. And she said, and then it's going to have an element of like maybe Chinese medicine or something like that. But she said, the thing you're going to talk about most is love.
If you guys are watching this episode, my dog is really trying to get that bone behind you, Dr. I'm so sorry.
Behind me? You want to go back here? Okay.
He's our spirit energy.
Well, this is love. This is what I was going to be talking about was love, which is you get also from unconditional love from pets. But that's what she said to me. She says, it's not the kind of love you have in your family, the kind of family choking kind of love. It's the unconditional kind of love, and people are going to come from all over the world to hear you speak and get advice.
Wow.
And I was like, tell me about my love life.
Yeah,
I was
right?
totally not interested. I was like, I want to know about my
young
love life.
20 mindset.
So
What did she say about your love life?
Well, that's where it put me in. That's what I hated her. She put me into despair. She said, you won't get married until your 50s. Which is true. I'm still 50.
Okay, I was like, wait, so are you married?
No, never got
Okay,
married.
so-
I actually chose not to, but yeah, I'm like 57, never got married. So she was right.
well,
I mean, but
there's still time.
essentially she said, you think you want what everybody else wants, but it's an illusion, and it's not your path.
I love that, these words kind of stuck with you for so long, because I was just listening, I think it was on Jay Shetty. Do you listen to Jay Shetty, his podcast? He's like one of my favorite podcast mentors. He just had a guest, and they were talking about, this type of energy and how people have the ability to tap into their psychic abilities more than other people, and how those patterns can change depending on the choices and the actions that you've made. So like sometimes people are like hear something from a psychic and it doesn't actually like resonate, and then they 10 years later are like, oh, that's what that was.
That's right. It's like this, like our perception of what reality is shifts with our own knowledge. So our perception of reality is finite because that's what our brain allows us to do. And as we become more expansive in thought, awareness, understanding, then our reality shifts alongside with it.
Consciousness.
So, which is exactly consciousness. So, as that expands and becomes what is, which is constantly evolving, because like I said, our brain is finite so that we could exist as human beings on this earth. But as we let go of that, which we let go through letting go of fear and connecting with love, then the infinite possibilities are possible. And so that reality and our connection and our relationship, that reality changes and shifts. So, and then what somebody might have said 10 years ago becomes like, but of course,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really just my own evolution of these years of thinking I knew something and then realizing, oh, I was only looking at it from this perspective.
Yeah.
Not from this perspective. Yeah.
And perspective is also just another level of consciousness that is just so wild to think about. Like my perspective can completely change depending on the experience that you gain through life.
Absolutely, and your perspective will change according to where your lens is at the moment, whether you're in the stress response or not. So when you're in the stress response, the physical body thinks you're in basically fight or flight. It says, I need to do something to adapt so that I can survive. So it's not thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's your brain. There's signals in your brain that shut down sort of the bigger part of your brain so that you focus from getting from point A to point B. So just by being in a negative emotion, your perception and perspective shift to a narrow lens versus a wide angle lens.
Yeah.
And by being in that state of joy, happiness, gratitude, love, the lens opens. And we can see that changes in the brain.
So what are some tips? I know I have been in therapy for probably over 10 years, really working on what you're talking about. Growing up, dysfunctional family upbringing, constantly in survival mode, and I still live in those patterns. My people around me are like, you're one of the hardest working people I know, but I'll get stuck in these patterns that I find myself in survival mode. But those are being conscious and learning more about yoga and mindfulness. I also realize how much I actually have the power to step out of that. And I think that it took me over a decade to learn those tools in my toolkit to even get started on fixing that.
Yeah.
So what are some tangible tips? I know you wrote a book about this.
I mean, there's so much here. There's like so much juice here that I'm thinking, oh my God, she's a perfect client, right? Because I mean, this is one of the reasons I'm in LA, because creating this Foundations of Resilience program, which is exactly addressing what you're talking about. And so part of this is changing our language, because the language even though all those things are true, they're also very victim statements. Even that I'm working on myself, or I've done so much work, it's very heavy. It's very traumatizing. It makes it feel like it's never going to end. It takes away the gift of the human experience of having had these experiences, as hard as they are. It's like, as opposed to thinking if I have to do work on myself, as if there's something wrong with me.
Yes.
And it takes away the notion of your own perfection. So,
Perfectionism.
but we don't want to take away the compassion for the hurt, that one has experienced. So how do we do that? By having, open, loving, mindful compassion for the human experience, and there's no but, saying I'm freeing myself. What is consciousness? It's freedom. So it's not work. I say that I'm in the freedom business.
I love that.
Right? So I'm going to create space for exactly what I'm feeling. So how do we do that? We have to create, we don't have to do anything. We are invited to create nervous system safety in this body. Because if like I said, if it's in the stress response, it's like trying to stop a shiver when it's cold outside.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get out of that emotional mindset from that hamster wheel. I like to think of it as like, a Monopoly game. Right? Life is a Monopoly game, and you're either the player.
I used to love that game.
Me
as a
too.
little girl. I played it for hours with my sister.
So, but you're either the player
I could
or you're the
beat you.
game. I'm sure you could. I have no doubt. But you're either the player or you're the game piece. And when you're in a negative emotional state, you get drawn into the game piece. You can't see the board. You're in the game piece. So we want to be in the player. We want to get back into the position of player. And how do
That
we do
athlete mentality.
Well, how do you do that? When you're in that fight or flight response, which you get pulled into through a negative emotion, right? So one is taking a pause, which we talked about in the very beginning. And two is creating nervous system safety through whatever technique you want to use, whether it's breathing techniques, through mindfulness, through yoga, punching a bag, whatever that may be, to get that nervous system into quiet, into safety, with compassion. Because it's recognizing my humanness, that there's nothing that is broken here, nothing that I need to change. It's just creating space for it. It's like, even when people say, we're holding space for you. Why do they say that? So that we can feel safe. It's for the nervous system, this physical form that I'm in, to feel safe, because my spiritual conscious form doesn't need anything. So the physical form that I'm in needs that love, needs that baby safety. So I'm in space. I'm creating space for that to be there, not trying to change it. And then as that calms down and I'm allowing that self-compassion, that love, right? So so we have pause, stress regulation, self-compassion, right? And now we can reappraise, because now I'm quieter.
Yeah.
What's really going on here?
Now you're conscious.
Am I the player or am I the piece? What do I want to choose? I choose to be the player. And now I navigate what is. Because I don't need what is to change itself for me to feel better, because I've already accomplished that. So now I'm navigating life. It's not happening to me. It's not even happening for me. It's happening with me.
Yes.
It's happening and I'm navigating it. So those are the 4 key steps.
So I think you know about Ayurvedic medicine. I think I saw somewhere that you've worked. That you've worked in the practice? Or?
I dabbled more in the like with more of the energy systems, like the 5 elements and the.
So are you familiar
doshas.
with when I say Vata
Yes.
energy? So Los Angeles is a very Vata city. I also, shared with you, so thank you. I'm like, healing is a journey. About the survival mode, but another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is like when you're in a very Vata energy, and then I, have a lot of really strong, good masculine energy. Like I'm a hard worker. I love working. I've had all these different jobs, and I always like to stay busy, and I love business. The podcast, I talk about entrepreneurship on here as well. But like, how do you keep that consciousness, but also that action forward, where you don't like cause burnout? So you talk about making stress work for you.
Well, that's it. It's using stress to your advantage, and it's exactly that. So here's sort of like the little coaching session, right? I am a hard worker. Okay?
I am a hard worker.
All right, now you can't be anything else but a hard worker.
No, I want a
Now,
massage.
what you are is a being that is in human form. You're an infinite being in finite form. And what you do in this form is to work hard. That allows you not to work hard sometimes. That allows you to not to just be. So I am a hard worker makes me, I now identified in a label and I can't do anything else. And if I do that, then I'm a slug. Then I'm not me.
See, that's
It's
what
not
I do
me.
to myself.
But that's what I'm saying, the language. When we change our language to be more conscious, more aware, more true to what truly is, the only thing that truly is that we're infinite beings in finite form. And then we get to have a human experience, so we get to do things. And we have skill sets that we're gifted with. And we do it because we like it.
Yeah.
And we do it because it feels good. So I work hard because I like it. It also, on the flip side, allows me not to be in my anxiety.
Yes.
It allows me to not feel that nervous system unsafety. So when I keep busy, so what happens is that we develop these tendencies because of not feeling safe in our early life experiences.
Yes.
So if we correct the not feeling safe, then I choose to work hard because I get to, not because I have to. So that's why that part is really important.
That has been helpful because that's something that's sounds like I'm on the right page then, because I feel like I've been so busy, but I stop myself and remember to be really grateful of how busy I am and how many things that I still could do with my time this evening, even just tonight.
Yeah.
But instead of like letting that spiral, it is a blessing. Like how cool is my life when you start to just be conscious and pause and act in love. I love this.
And act in joy. Act in I'm lucky. I get to do this.
I get to do this.
You know, and that if and when we do get re-triggered, which will happen because that's kind of, you know,
it's life.
That's Earth. Yeah. Then we can again say, oh, there's that feeling, and that feeling's drawing me into the behaviors that I adapted so that I could cope.
Yes.
That's all okay. It's part of being human. So that self-compassion is really such an important facet of all this. And that's going to allow us to be more present and purposeful. So that I'm doing something because I can, and I'm doing it, you know, at a pace that's right, and it's not going to burn out because I'm going to be fueling myself all along the way. But if I'm so focused on getting to be, I'm not going to take care of myself because my brain thinks that be is more important than anything else.
Right. Yeah, I love that. It's a great way to go far, like run a marathon, but with baby steps.
Yeah,
now.
with a lot of love and joy all along the way. And if it doesn't feel love and joyful, then take a break and take care. Always take care. That's like number one. You know, we look outside of ourselves to try to feel better, and what our body's saying is take a moment to take care of you and then keep going. So like stress is not a negative thing, it's just letting us know to take care.
Yeah, it's a signal.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just like hunger.
So what about patterns? I know that like, I mean, even in social media, right? Algorithm, it's just another fancy word of saying patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like you've had, because I can definitely like, I'm going to be 40 this summer. So I'm starting to really like think about like my life in decades now. I guess that's
40.
what you do when you almost hit 40. You think of decades of your life. Yeah. And there are patterns that are cool because the author in me, which I want to talk to you about, I like the patterns. It almost feels like a really significant signal from the universe or, you know, higher power, whatever resonates with you, that I'm either like still haven't learned something and that's why I keep getting this pattern. But do you feel like you've had patterns like this in your life? So
sure.
What are some of them that
you
feel comfortable sharing?
I'm happy to share that. I mean, I'm pretty open. I just want to say one thing about that pattern is that I do believe in this, and I don't think this is a have to believe. I think our belief system is part of our narrative to help us feel like we can exist, you know, happily. Mm-hmm. The way somebody described this to me felt like very true. So that the point in time that we're born, if you look at sort of the astrological chart or the sort of where the stars were and the planets were and your mom and dad were at the time of your birth, that's set. You know, so the pattern is already set in the universe. Cool. So how Mars interacts with Jupiter, interacts with Neptune, and you know, all that, I don't go through one act, but it's made so much sense when they explained it to me because the pattern's right there. Because, you know, when they read my chart, they say, oh, you're this, and that. I said, how'd you know? Did I have any free will? which is a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
I don't really believe we do. So it's not about necessarily changing your pattern. It will always be there. It's about transcending the pattern. The pattern,
Consciousness again.
yes, the pattern is set. Okay, so we think, oh, I gotta break this pattern. When you do that, you don't allow for self-compassion. It's a pattern that is like, shows up all the time. And then I have where the free will might come in is the choices I make given that pattern. So given what is, what am I to do? Right? Player or game
your ability
piece.
to be human and like make.
Player or game piece. It's still the same game.
Yeah.
Okay, so my pattern, what I was born into, and I was telling our dear friend Serena about this vision that I had with the fairies, and which I'll tell you about. But my pattern is not lacking recognition. So working really hard and doing a lot of wonderful things, and not having recognition over and over and over again. It could be, part of the patriarchal, finding yourself at Harvard, and it's one of the reasons I left Harvard, because I was too outspoken and I was too out there, and I almost got fired for being too spiritual, whatever.
I've been
15
fired
years
a couple
ago.
times.
And having a book that came out during an economic collapse that was supposed to be this new big thing, and it got orphaned because my editor left because everybody went bankrupt. So all these things that led to this continual infliction. So it was mostly a self-infliction of, I must not be enough. There must be something wrong with me. And when something happens enough times, including our own childhood experience, you keep thinking, well, there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Because I work so hard, it still doesn't work. Why don't I have more people following me?
Yeah.
I don't get it. That person does it, and that person's like taking my stuff, and they're, and they're getting visibility, and I'm not. And so it's really been like this very humbling and beautiful experience, and very difficult.
Yes.
Being in a family with a father who's a scientist who doesn't recognize what I do, even though it's a different type of science.
It feels like very sciencey. That's what I love about
it is very
energy
sciencey,
work.
but it's not his kind of science.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He can't see
I can get that.
something outside of himself. And so it's sort of that understanding that that's just how it is. It's not something, it's like what's changing is if I don't suffer around it.
Right. You bring love back into the healing
I don't
process.
care.
Yeah.
Because what the lesson for me, I believe, and it will continuously change, hopefully I'll be around for a while, the lesson for me is, knowing this, how can I still love? And knowing this, how do I want to show up? It's not about being visible by others. It's, do I see the infinite in me?
It's beautiful.
So it's transcending and transmuting that pattern into something that we can do something about. And that's the freeing up. So as long as I'm attached to that pattern, I'm a slave to it. And we become slaves to everything on this earth, like working hard, why? So what?
Yeah.
But if I'm working hard because I'm filled with so much love and joy and I want to have such great impact on others, that's easy. It's freedom.
Yeah.
So that's a
I
long,
love that.
long way of
No, but I love that.
explanation.
But yeah, there's, I feel like there's so much power in letting go and detachment. And
loosening your grip, I like to think.
yeah, that's what, even when I'm teaching asana and actually teaching a yoga class, that's really the majority of the pose is letting go of your expectation of what it's supposed to look like, letting go of the tension in your muscles and your bones, and letting go of your need to control a fluid breath. So speaking of yoga, see, I always promise that we'll teach a yoga pose somehow in this podcast, but I figured one for you that I picked, which could come off could be a little morbid. But my very favorite pose, and probably a lot of people who don't like yoga like this pose, is Shavasana. And I often start my students in Shavasana. I like to disarm everybody. I definitely teach a very restorative, slow, hatha, yummy, restorative type class. So starting in Shavasana is one of my favorite things. Ending in Shavasana too. They always skip Shavasana. Like yoga teachers don't give good Shavasanas, I don't think. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. So it's the practice of dying. and the fear of letting go of death.
It's my favorite.
Okay, so you resonate with that.
Yeah, but
I
you
feel
chose
like with
it
your
for me because
background,
you figured out it was my favorite.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
No, I mean,
I was thinking more like
intuitively and psychically, you figured out that it was my favorite.
yeah. I felt your energy. Yeah, because I also just assumed with like all the different treatments and modalities and clients and experiences that you've had in your career, you probably have a very interesting take on the practice of death.
I do.
Yeah.
I actually will share with you a story that when I first thought about it. Well, was it beforehand? The first time I thought about it was when I had a dream of a friend who I hadn't seen in years who came into my dream, and he came to say goodbye. And then I got a call the next morning that he had passed.
That gave me chills.
And so that was sort of my first kind of like inclination of knowing that, the other side is not really the other side. It's sort of everything's still here. But so that's on one hand. So that's sort of this knowing that it's just sort of a continual extension of this form that because he had passed and he was talking to me in my sleep. So it freaked me out a little bit. I was quite young. I think I might have been 20 or something, or 18. But it was, when I went into my parents' room, and I said, I had the strangest experience. So-and-so just called, and my dad said, "Oh yeah, your grandmother's like that." Oh, okay. And so fast forward, I don't know, 7 years later, it's 1996. And I was working as a resident in a city hospital in Boston. Huge proportion of our patients had HIV. Did a procedure, stuck with an HIV needle, a patient in the ICU who we're keeping alive. And I had to go on a cocktail of medications to prevent conversion to HIV. It was a very bad exposure. I was one of the first people to go on that cocktail back in 1996. So back then you just died horrible deaths from HIV.
Yeah.
So when I was in my bargaining stage, if there is a God, and please let me live. I promise you, all these things. I'll be a better person, kinder, more compassionate, all that. But I was also really angry. It's like, what is wrong with our world that we don't know how to let people pass?
Yeah.
We're spending, I don't know, $5,000 a day to keep this person alive in the ICU who's really dead, but being kept on a ventilator. Like, this is what changed the course of my career. That's when I said, I can't do this. I said, I was going to work in ICUs. That was my plan. And I said, I can't do this. I can't keep people alive who need to go. I'm happy to help keep people alive who want to stay.
Right.
But what I really want to figure out is how to help people live.
Gosh, such a
incredible
moment.
Yeah, so that's really Twitter. Like what led me to where I am, to volunteer at the Mind Body Institute, blah, 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 to be where I am today. But so it is something that I've thought about a lot. For me, death is just transitioning. It's a transition of our sort of, again, getting out of finite form to the more infinite, in different levels of that. I help my clients or patients at the time to talk to their loved ones. Because to me it's about energy. And, to really learn more from the indigenous tribes and world of how to honor that cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We're going to take a quick break.
These are like
deep
conversations. I know. Who knew?
Okay. Really going to help me with my communication.
Well, that's part of like what I do. Is I help people change their narrative.
I think I'm good like this.
Yeah. It's like being I have another story about watching the words right before my apartment burned down.
Oh my gosh, tell me. Unfortunately, that's on trend with like LA.
Yeah, I was also 1996. It was like a few months after the needle stick. I had gone away to get away. There was just a lot of other things that had happened, and I went away to the desert in Israel, to the Sinai Desert, which is my favorite place in the world. And I, hang out with the Bedouins, and it's like, time is still, and you're in consciousness. And came back, and I said to my roommate at the time, it was this Brazilian woman, We had completely different lifestyles. She was a belly dancer. She would get home at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to my surgery rotation. And I had come home and I said, oh, that's it. I want to be a minimalist. You know, I just need simple. And I remember because it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd just taken a shower. I was getting ready to go to my rotation, a surgery rotation. And she walks into the room and she says, I have a message for you. And she was like sleepwalking. So I thought it was like, this is weird. She goes, from my sister. So her sister lived in Peru. I'm like, okay. And her sister is psychic in Peru.
Okay.
And she says, my sister said to watch your words. And I said, okay, it's kind of weird. And then I went to work, you know, and I got a call later that day that my apartment had burned down. And I was like, be careful what you ask for.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch your words.
I mean, I had a similar experience with, like, I kept saying, you mentioned you almost got fired for being too spiritual. I couldn't pinpoint exactly why I got fired from this big job I had for a company that I worked for them for 4 years. But I do know that I was running around for over a year with the words coming out of my mouth. I just feel like there's a target on my back. Like, it doesn't matter what I do, there's a target on my back.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got fired, I had just gone like 2 weeks prior to the dermatologist, and she's like, we got to take a lot off your body. You have a lot of skin cancer that needs to come off. But we were going to ration it out over like a 6-month period. But you know, when you lose your job, you lose your health insurance. So all that had to get rushed. And one of my scars on my back, it's a little X.
Target. Watch
Target
your words.
on my back is one of the scars. But it was kind of like that. Like, maybe, you know, the lesson had lessened, and I really kind of just laughed when I saw it. I was like, target on my back. Got it. Watch your words.
Watch your words. Yeah.
So you said, I think it was a YouTube video, you talked about this a little bit with your heart work. I watched one of the YouTube videos on your channel, and it was talking about diving deep into your heart to reclaim your life. My yoga teacher always says, if my heart could do my thinking and my head could truly feel, then I would know what is really real. She calls our yoga really real yoga. So I really resonated with that. So I kind of just wanted to hear a little bit more about reclaiming your life.
Yeah. So if we think about, let's go back to what I was saying before, like being when you're first stress versus love, right? And this is the duality that we live in. That's the human experience, is that we need stress to let us know when we need to shift. You know, hunger is a stress, being cold is a stress, so that lets us know that we need to put on something warm or eat something. And also when we're not feeling safe. And so when we have a lifetime of experiences where we weren't safe when we were younger, the brain, the body is coming up with a programming sort of what to do and what not to do to stay safe. Okay? And so the body picks up signals of what's happening way before the brain actually figures it out. That's why we're sentient beings. That means we feel. We have all these senses that inform our heart and all the secondary brains throughout our body to let us know, are we safe or are we not? Do I need to act? Do I not need to act? So you'll sit there for a while, and at some point you're going to get uncomfortable.
I might lean back now.
But how do you know that you're uncomfortable? Because the sensory neurons were sending messages to your brain saying, you know, getting numb, feeling uncomfortable. So then your brain then creates an executive decision to move. Sends the motor neurons, the muscle neurons, to move, to shift positions. That's how it works. So we wouldn't know to put on something warm, or to eat something, or to shift positions without our senses. Our senses allow us to be in the human experience, to be able to adapt and cope and survive on the earth. In consciousness and ethereal form, we don't need them. So we don't have pain, but we also don't have pleasure.
Right.
Okay, so our senses allow us to have the human experience. They inform the rest of our body, they inform our heart, and they inform the brain. So that's sort of starting with that. Now, when we have hardships or difficult experiences, the body will hold the score. It remembers, especially the heart. And what the heart will do, and it's an electromagnetic field, 66% of the heart is actually brain neurons. Okay, the heart cells are brain neurons, so they have an electromagnetic field, a signaling system that says, oh, I'm picking up lack of safety. Shut off. So the heart will close to protect. And that will send signals to the brain saying, danger, do the coping behaviors you've always done to feel better. Go look outside of yourself. So on one hand, it's wonderful because it's keeping us safe. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, when the heart closes, we have a disconnection.
Yeah.
Disconnection from other, disconnection from source, disconnection from self. So the key here is why I said we need to create nervous system safety. Because when I'm in safety mode, I can open my heart and connect to all there is. And when I'm connected to all there is and I'm in a state of consciousness than infinite rather than finite, then I connect to the infinite possibilities that are available to me. I navigate. Then heart and mind can coalesce, can be in coherence. Then my brain doesn't lead because it's trying to get out of harm's way. My brain is navigating. Okay, so the brain is good for discerning and nothing else. Otherwise, we'll talk about the past or anticipate a future. It's not in the present moment. The heart can't make decisions because it's too emotional. So the two have to come together. But they can't do that if you're in fear or stress.
Oh my gosh. I feel like, I don't know why this came to me, but I'll say it because it did. That almost feels like that would be like a really good like science kids movie, like the brain and the heart like becoming friends, like a little.
We should do it.
You're right.
I love it.
Or it's a Coffee Crystals Dr. Eva branded book.
Yeah, it's a book. The next book will be a children's book. This is a great idea.
Oh my gosh. Everyone heard our idea, so hopefully we get to it. If it's meant for us,
but if somebody else does it, then by all means,
just like send me a check.
Yeah. Just give me credit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to get the money. She just wants a tag. Awesome. So, listening to you talk about stress and fear and anxiety, these are just like words that are out there, like everyone is triggered by something. And I like that you make it such a positive, like a workbook. You created a stress workbook and you've made stress and anxiety and fear a positive thing. So I have a lot of stress and anxiety that is getting in the way from me writing this book that I just truly feel like is one of my life's purpose. And I thought that I got the unlock of why I wasn't writing is because I couldn't figure out how to end the book. And I was like, well, Shavasana, like just keep writing and like just pick something to end it. And now I think that I'm learning because my story, I feel like I'm leading with too much emotion on it. And then the fear of like family reading it, being like, that's not what happened. And just all of this is getting in the way. So as someone who has published books and also studied the subject, what are some tips for me?
Good question. All right, so let's sort of repeat one of the lessons, which is doing it with joy.
Yes.
Right? So I get to write this book.
And it used to feel that way.
Yeah. 2 is, let me just create it. Just write it. Don't worry about the outcome. So it's loosening my grip on having an outcome. Why am I so attached to the outcome? So part of this is also having fun with the inquiry. Yeah. Not so much like, oh, I can't believe I can't get this ending. I can't finish this book, and I have some anxiety around it. Like, oh, God, I'm so heavy. How about like, oh, how curious.
Yeah.
Like, because it's another chapter.
Right.
I have another, maybe it doesn't have an ending, and there's going to be like volume 2, volume 3, volume 4.
Yeah.
I mean, who cares? Who cares? Yeah. The big question is, so what? So what I don't have an ending? The whole point of art is that there's no ending. Yeah, it's fluid, and it's an expression, and the expression is on a continuum. So what I do is I just write it. I don't like worry about what I'm writing. I have an idea, obviously. I've created a mind map or some type of outline, but I'm always telling a story. I've 6 books. The last 2 are dummies books, but I was still telling a story. What's the story that I want to tell? right? And the story's going to change. But it's just, let me get it out, then I put it away. And then I
That's
edit
key.
it, and then I edit, and then I edit, and I edit, and I edit, and then somebody else edits, right? But get it out. Just get it out.
When did you write your first book?
Well, the first manuscript no one's ever seen. So I think that one,
Ooh.
I mean, a literary agent saw it. She goes, it's way too, technical. The masses are not going to read that. And so the first book came out in 2009, but it was completed in 2007 because at that time it took 2 years for once the publishing house got the full thing. I think from contract to publishing was 2 years. So 2007 was The Love Response, which is the first book. And then after that, I wrote the next book a few years later, 2012. The next one came out, and then 2015, and then 17, and then 20, and last year.
What was,
2 years ago.
do you have a favorite? Or
Well, my first love was The Love Response.
okay.
That to me was interesting because I had not read any other books on the subject. I had based the book on 287 scientific references, my own personal experience, and my patients.
I love that.
And this basis of how love heals, and scientifically and spiritually. And so really a science meets spirit book. And I was invited to speak at a conference. And I sat in some of the other speakers' lectures and realized they were saying the same thing I was. And I said, wow, I didn't come up with this. I just have the privilege of being able to read the stars, have access. And so, but it was my first love because it was a labor of love. It was just, really flowing out, and people say downloading, but really just, the mist sort of lifted and I was able to read the stars.
Yeah.
And find, like, it was just fun. I'm like, oh, if this is true, then this is true, and then this is true, then this is true. Let me look it up on research.
Cause see, even that little, like, I love that part.
Yeah,
of it. Like, I
it's so
love just
fun.
like in the zone, like sitting at my little desk.
It's so
or,
fun.
Yeah, I
That's
love
what I'm saying.
it.
Don't lose the fun.
Yeah.
Don't lose the fun. When I understood love was like when my niece was born. I was ready. I was having anxiety attacks
Cute.
in between, like wanting to leave my primary care job. I was just hating it. And my niece, my niece was born at the hospital where I was working, so they let me be in the labor and delivery room, and they gave her to me from, my sister had a C-section. I'm holding this little bloody mess, and time just stood still. All my worries were gone in that moment. And I was like, everything's fine, everything's great, everything's going to be okay. And I kept thinking about that, and it was that love that allowed me to say, this is not what I want in my life, and move on to do something else. But the point being is that because of my own experience of this incredible love, and how it made me like still, and it was similar to my experience when I meditate, I said, what's going on here? And I started researching research, because it's like about knowing what questions to ask, which led me to the answer, which is the neurobiology of love is actually the same as the meditative state. That's when I said, oh, that means we can get to the meditative state quicker if we add love to it. That's how the love response came to be. But it's the idea of being curious, of having fun, and being like, oh, how curious, rather than, oh, no. So that's my advice, is have fun, keep asking questions. Anxiety is just something you feel. It's not who you are. And just ask questions. Okay, how is this opportunity? How's this opportunity? So it's like, people talk about fixed mindset and growth mindset.
Yeah.
I talk about opportunity mindset.
I like that.
How's this an opportunity?
Okay. Very helpful. How would you say that your work has changed and grown over the years?
That's a good question. Well, I've grown and changed in different ways. Whatever. But my connection to the infinite has changed, and my understanding. Well, it's not even connection to infinite. I used to feel separate from it, and now I just know I am it in physical form. So it's a differentiation of my own experience of going through whatever I've gone through, pain and hurt and rejection and self-worth, and to the point of wondering why I'm even here. of not wanting to be here. That was my big issue, was always been not wanting to be here. It's like when I was a kid, I'd look up at the moon and say, I want to go home.
Same.
Like, I don't want to be here. Like, ugh, I don't want to be on Earth. I want to go home,
I was always very painted and still as like a very happy, positive person,
Yeah.
but I never wanted to be here. My friends kept me like social and like, fun, but I struggled with that as a kid too.
Yeah, so it's sort of that freeing up, being freed up of that, and actually understanding that I get to do it, has been a really big shift, and there's so much less suffering. Again, it's being player versus the piece has really shifted. The perspective has changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. What would you say that was some advice that you got early on that you kind of remember? I have like little random ones that have been really helpful. Like she's basically a surrogate mother to me. I grew up with my great-grandmother, but she kicked me out of the house when I was in high school. We had a little, bratty years. So I moved in next door, and she was my first experience with Reiki healing and energy healing, and she would wake me up early at 6 a.m. and make me go to the gym with her. She always cooked really healthy meals, so she was kind of my first mentor of this whole new lifestyle that, is a game changer for my life. But she's a lot of nuggets over the years have stuck with me, but her one was like, always have your own bank account and always make your own money. And I just have had so many friends that have like gone through divorce and lost it all, or lost jobs, and just always depended on someone else. So I feel like in my patterns and the decades that I've learned, like listening to that and always kind of making my own money as a woman has really come in clutch for me and just my experiences. And not being in a scenario where I like worked all this and because of a marriage I lost it all.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So what about you?
It's really practical.
I know, right?
It's really. I mean, I'm sure there's so many, and the one that keeps popping into mind is later on. I think maybe it might have been that year, '96, also, when I talked to a parapsychologist, and I was quite depressed, or feeling a lot of depression, and it was a really really hard year, hard time. And didn't want to be here, and thought I wanted all these things.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, I must have been 28.
Okay.
Wanting marriage and kids and all those things, and thinking it was never going to happen, and feeling unwanted. And she said, you think you want what everybody else wants. I'm hearing it again. Yeah. You think you want what everyone else wants. And she was part Native American, and she goes, but that's at the Hayoka, in a Native American, I don't know which tribe, but she said it means Hayoka, means clown. The clown in a circus that is there to distract you. She goes, what everybody else wants is the Hayoka. She said, follow your mission, follow your passion. The rest will be gifted and given. Oof.
I love that.
And that has stuck with me for 30 years.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So what's your mission? What is this mission? What do you say your purpose is?
Well, my purpose is to know the infinite in my finite form. That's my purpose.
Okay.
My mission, which I get to do, I don't have to do. So I think that's really, I think, I'm saying this because
it's the joy. And that's
because it's not heavy. I have this purpose and this is why I'm here. I think most people say that because they need to self-glorify to feel better about their reason for being here.
Yeah.
I just get to be here. It's really as simple as that. So, and my purpose, as I feel most of our purposes are, is to know the infinite and finite. And when I do, my mission is what I get to do, is be able to share these gifts with as many people as possible. To bring light, to bring love, to bring joy, love, joy, and beauty in everything that I get to do, and influencing that for the rest of the earth. That's what I get to do. And as many people as possible. Maybe one, maybe millions, but I get to do it. That's the mission.
It sounds like abundance. I've been studying abundance a lot, and when, like what you just said, is I think true abundance is when you're really sharing your gift with others and not to take, but really giving
Mm-hmm.
and really like being able to share abundance.
Because your cup runneth over. How does your cup runneth over? Because you know it's always being filled. You know, people ask, do you see the cup as half empty or half full? And I say neither. There's more where it came from.
Yeah.
So if I know it's always being filled, which it always does, you know, you're the yoga instructor, you don't just breathe out. It's
Right.
like, you're not just like, oh, wait a minute, where did that breath go?
Exactly.
You know that another one's going to come right back in. So when we have that knowing that I'm always being filled, then my cup can runneth over. Which, again, is very difficult to do when we're under duress and in a negative emotional state.
Yeah.
So that's why we take care, so we can get back.
Yeah. It's amazing. Just that duality in general. Like, I love that you said it's like a yoga practice, but it was International Women's Day, so we're
Yes.
ending the weekend with a bang. It should be a weekend, a week,
I
a
think
month.
so. A year.
Yeah, just always.
Maybe, yeah, always.
But that discussion around like masculinity and feminism and masculine side and feminine side, I do often teach when that comes up, or on the podcast, or when people ask me questions about that. I just tell them not to get so stuck on the duality and honor both. And I think that's kind of the same thing of like the fear, anxiety. It's just, you just don't get so stuck on one left or right, star or moon.
It's like getting stuck on hunger.
Yeah.
It's like it's how the body's speaking to you, to letting you know to shift positions. The body's letting you know to take care. That's what it is. It's just that it's wrapped up in a negative emotion, so it's hard to pull yourself from under it.
Do you use crystals?
I love to use crystals. I don't really know what I'm doing half the time, but I like them.
Yeah. I think even just as a little girl, I always loved rocks, and that was part of like my little nook where I would put my books and where I would write, because I was a writer as a kid. I always had my little rocks from outside, and I even saved all my money and bought a rock tumbler so I could make crystals. But I think what's really cool about them is that they hold such an energy. And right now, which is so fitting that you're on the show, is I've been gifting a lot of rose quartz and love-centered stones, all about the heart chakra. And I think that, you know, just for your crystal lesson of the episode, green stones and rose quartz and the purple stones, those are all really good when you're trying to attract and manifest more love in your life.
I love that.
And that's a wrap. But before you go, a quick reminder that this is a self-produced, edited, directed, produced, created, all the things I am doing on my own. So the way that you can help my show grow and create growth for Coffee and Crystals podcast is to make sure that you are following the platform on your platform of choice. Also sharing the show with someone that you feel would benefit from the content we covered. If you have an idea of what you want to learn about or a topic that would keep you on the show longer, please feel free to reach out. You can email me, TheKadieWay@gmail.com. That's TheKadieWay@gmail.com. It's all about consumption time. I need you guys listening longer, which means give me topics or questions or maybe even ideas of what it is that you are goal crushing on in this season. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for listening.